Hello, I'm Jothy Rosenberg, the host of Designing Successful Startups, where today's guest is Nico Torteli.
I was living in Brazil, and then I was invited to run with the Olympic torch. So I was part of the relay. They invited athletes that went to the Olympics, any Olympics, to participate.
Nico Torteli is a former Olympic swimmer and a graduate of the University of Florida. Following his athletic career, he began his professional journey at an investment bank in Brazil. Driven by a passion for innovation and entrepreneurship, he co-founded 3 successful fintech companies in Brazil from 1990 to 2017. After returning to the United States, he leveraged his expertise in sports and technology to co-found Sportidia, a social media platform dedicated to inspiring physical activity and fostering a global community of athletes and fitness enthusiasts. And here is Nico. Well, hello, Nico.
Hello. It actually comes from Antonio. That's my middle name in Portuguese. Little Antonio is Antonico. It's like, the little in Portuguese, it's got the Nico. So I became Nico forever.
Well, that actually is a nice segue to my very first question, which is, where are you originally from and where do you live now?
Okay, so I was born and raised in Rio, Brazil. When I was 17 to 18, I came to swim at Mission Viejo in California. It was right when I got accepted into college in Brazil, and my swimming career wasn't going so good. So I kind of convinced my parents, let me take a year off and I'll just swim, which is awesome, although really hard. And see if I, change my status. So I left Brazil. I was probably the 5th, 6th swimmer in the country, stayed about 10 months in Mission Viejo and went back and then broke the Brazilian record. So that when my career jumped, and then I qualified for the World Championship. And then my parents said, no, you got to go back and work out, 6 more months to the World Championship. So, you don't ruin, like the very end. So I got an extra 6 months. And then a friend of mine came with me and we swam. It was like a life of a swimmer. So you just like practice, you eat right, you rest, and then competitions like every weekend. That's why, it does change a lot. I went to the World Championship. That was 1986. And it was the best ever qualification. I was 14th of the world that year. 2 years later, I swam the Olympics in 88 in Seoul. And then while in Seoul, I was already attending college in Rio in Brazil. And then I realized that my swimming career was going to go, you're trying to study, get a degree, blah, blah, blah. I said, maybe I should have stayed in the US and get a degree while swimming because, college and sports here run much better than anywhere else in the world. Then talking to people at the Olympics, I was recruited by the University of Florida. So I came here in 89 and started my degree or my schooling in US. So I have a degree of industrial and systems engineering at the University of Florida while swimming. So then I got the whole second part, which is like go and do NCAA and SECs and all the college experience, which I didn't have. In Brazil, I had all the club experience. That's, more likely. And then after I graduated, I was at University of Florida as an engineer and like kind of switching, from swimmer to engineer, and realized I could get scholarship to get a master's. So I decided to stay and then got my master's at the University of Florida. Helped with the, schools like that, which I didn't know, but they had big athletic departments where if you kind of get the degree that normally an athlete doesn't get, you get to go back and tutor like math and physics and things like that for football players. So, I tutor people like Emmett Smith and other UF football players and basketball players, which was pretty cool. Then I went back home and that's how my professional career started. I was back in Brazil, but then got a job to move to Sao Paulo, not Rio anymore.
But then when the real Olympics happened, you were already living in Brazil, right?
Yes, I was living in Brazil, and then I was invited to run with the Olympic torch. So I was part of the relay. They invited athletes that went to the Olympics, any Olympics, to participate. Of course, there's the ones that actually lit up the fire, but I was in before that running. Funny coincidences. I was invited by Coca-Cola to run this. It was actually my wife knew somebody in Coca-Cola. They were looking for athletes, and so my husband went to the Olympics, and that's how I got in. But it's funny how you become famous again. For a little while, you just run 300 meters, so it's pretty short. But once you get the torch, you're in the middle of the streets, and there's a ton of people getting selfies and things, and then somebody, truck with the organization, they start announcing, "Oh, this is Nico. He went to the Olympics and blah blah blah," and people didn't know, but this guy's holding the torch. He must be famous. So I have I had a lot of people surrounding me. Let me get a selfie. Let me get a selfie. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, but they didn't know you could run because you're a swimmer. Who thinks this?
That's why they only gave me 300 meters.
One more swimming question. All that time when you were, first getting excited about swimming as a kid and swimming competitively, all the way through the Olympics, was it always breaststroke, or was that the only thing you competed in? Or
Yeah, this is also a funny story. When I started, I was a good backstroker, but that was way, way when I was a kid, like 8-year-old, 9-year-old kid. Um, I don't know what happened exactly, but I started to get better breaststroke. And if I am to tell you the one stroke I can't swim is backstroke. So I have very old, like programs in my mom cap that show that I won a backstroke event, then never again. So my IM was really bad because of my backstroke, but I was a sprinter. So and it's funny, when I look at a swimmer, I can tell if they're long distance swimmer, if they're freestylers, backstrokers, they all have different kind of bodies. So I am short, bulky, and so I was a typical sprint breaststroker. Even the 200 for me, it was like, it's too long. I would love if they had the 50 breaststroke at my time, but they didn't. In fact, the first Olympics that ever had a 50 freestyle was my Olympics in 1988. That was the first time ever the 50 freestyle was in the Olympics, and they never made it that they added the 50 butterfly breaststroke, backstroke. They say it's because it's going to add, too many medals to one sport, so they never did. But it was my dream to have the 50 breast. I probably would have swum like 10 more years, if they had the 50 breast. So, but you do train, more freestyle than anything. So, when you're working out, like everything from your distance, your endurance, or there's a lot of freestyle in it. So yeah, I did get to swim 50 free because I was a sprinter, and I did swim the IM, but I was dead last on the backstroke, and then picked up everybody on the breaststroke, and then it was like no more air to come back for the freestyle. So normally I would be like top 3 going from last to first.
because all the wheel class freestyle swimmers are very tall with very long arms. So you're telling me you're not tall? You can't tell on a video call. How tall are you?
I'm 5'9". I'm a short breaststroker. But when I go to big events up to today, they've got stronger than what we used to be. And they said nowadays they do a lot more weight training than what we used to. So you see them like very bodybuilding style. But most of the times the breaststrokers are short. And you're right, the freestylers are long and tall. 7 feet tall is like, your top 8, probably everybody's over 7 feet tall.
They say that Michael Phelps, like the normal measurement is that fingertip to fingertip is like within a half an inch of your height in most people. In his case, he's like 4 inches longer this way.
Yeah.
It
started with a German guy. I don't know if you remember, but he swam in my Olympics. Name was Michael Gross, from Germany. He was the Albatrix. And it was said because when he swam the butterfly, it seemed like he was going to touch both lanes, because his arms wouldn't fit. So some of the swimmers, especially the butterflyers, are, they have a long wingspan. The other thing about Michael Phelps is that his legs are short compared to his torso, which again, there is a proportionality where, they're normally 20% higher, but he's the other way around. And I've had friends that swam IM that are like that. And I think it's because once your legs get shorter, you spend less oxygen with your kick. It's all, swimming to me is fun or funny because even the ones their body are not made for anything else, they will be good in one of the strokes that we swim. So it fits everybody.
Well, let me ask you it still involves the Olympics in your background, but not directly about, the competition. But how did the experience of being an Olympic athlete shape your perspective on the rest of your life, both personally and professionally?
For everything, when you're an athlete and sometimes you work just as hard, but you don't make it all the way, or you're there and it changes from discipline to goal seeking. So, normally when athletes say, I'm going to do this, and they will die trying, they will keep doing it. And that sort of permeated into when I graduated and went back home. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was an engineer. And then a friend of mine worked in an investment bank, a very aggressive investment bank. And he said, you should give me your resume and let's see if they interview you. And it was funny because, all these people making a ton of money in the financial market. And, they sat with me. It's like, oh yeah, you didn't go to the top 10 schools in the US. I said, yeah, I did. No, you didn't. You didn't go to an Ivy League. I said, no, I went to a top 10 school in swimming. That's who would give me a scholarship, and not, Harvard would not give me a scholarship, but UF would, because, we were second at NCAA. And all of a sudden the whole room starts to go, we're way better than you professionally, but, you're just not losing your cool because you're discussing. And then the other question that came right after is like, yeah, were you ever at a situation of stress? And I said, what do you mean? And it's like, yeah, I imagine the whole market is going down. Everybody's yelling on the trade desk and, we got the wrong position and clients are calling and blah, blah, blah. I said, have you ever walked into a room with 8 people in the finals and they're all going to swim and they have a minute to prove who's best? You can smell the adrenaline. You can see that even the world record holder is nervous. That to me is stress. What you say has got enough time to fix it. And I got the job. So it's like, you've been trying to create things that athletes have lived, not because, they're trying to be badass or anything, but you're just, you see tennis player, they're 18 years old. They're going through more stress to play a final in Wimbledon than anybody else in the professional world will ever go through their lives. So it did help me a lot to get, a job. And then when I decided to become an entrepreneur, I tend to say that startups is just like a athletic career. You have an idea, you think you're going to get there. Nobody has a recipe, and it's all on you. Plus, whoever you put on the team, just keep shooting.
Well, the one thing that for sure uh, brings the athlete, the world's best athlete down and brings everyone down is aging. And so there was a point somewhere along the way when you realized, okay, I'm getting older and I'm not going to be able to, keep this up and compete with these guys. And then how did this transition from being top, top small percent of athletes in swimming in the world and go into this new, career in finance?
Um, this is actually a cool, funny question because I went through that a lot, not only in the career, but also you get old, but you don't want to be inactive. So you keep trying other sports. So, I went there to learn snowboarding, and The third day, I was like, why am I not in the pool? You know, I know everything there and I'm falling on my butt for 3 days here. And everybody's laughing at me. My kids are making fun of me because they're doing it already. So also when you try something else, and the better you are, the worse it is. We had a guy that was maybe 4 years older than me. He was a world record holder from Brazil on the 400 IM. He came to Texas for school. I was in the team with him, and I remember he started a little bit before me in the financial market, and you know he would be harassing like, "Oh yeah, you think you're now the world record holder? You're just a trainee at the firm." And it's right at for 10 more years, 15 more years, at every pool he walked in, he was still somebody that people would go, "Oh my God, it's you." But in the financial market, he was a nobody. Well, he didn't continue. He went back to swimming and became a coach, and he worked for the Olympics in 2016 in the swimming organization and everything. So it's really hard to switch. But you're right. It starts with age, and I have a thing that I say, and people get mad at me because I say all the good athletes are dumb. And they say, "Oh, you think we're too smart?" It's no, no, no. When you start questioning, why am I doing this? Should I get a career? That's when your career in swimming gets sort of derailed because you don't believe everything anymore. And while you're believing everything, like you believe your coach, you believe your workouts, you believe your program, that's when you succeed. So there's I say it, kind of in a funny way. They're not stupid, but it's like they're they're believers. And there's a point in life where you start questioning, I can't live off that, my whole life. I got to do something else. And that's when you start balancing for sports. It doesn't fit. If you start balancing, that means your career is not 100% of your focus. So things kind of somebody else is focusing 100% at the same event that you swam, and they're going to come stronger than you. Cause I went like my last year in college, it had been like 3 years. It was 92. So it was 4 years after the Olympics. So I was an older side, but I remember going to I think it was SEC conference, and the professor here in school, if you have an exam, the professor would give it to the coach, and the coach would apply the exam to you in the hotel room. So I remember I was like me and another two taking exams, and the other swimmers were just like sleeping because all they cared about was swimming. Their grades could, suffer. So that's when you realize, oh my God, they're racing at the afternoon. We're going to swim against each other. I've been 3 hours, thinking on an exam, and they've been sleeping. So something changed.
Hi, the podcast you are listening to is a companion to my recent book, Tech Startup Toolkit: How to Launch Strong and Exit Big. This is the book I wish I'd had, as I was founding and running 8 startups over 35 years. It's like a memoir of my entrepreneurial journey. I tell the unvarnished truth about what went right and especially about what went wrong. It's for the founder, the CEO, and wannabe founders of tech and non-tech startups. You can get it from all the usual booksellers and also from the publisher at Manning.com. I hope you like it. It's a true labor of love. Now back to the show. And now we get to talk about your shirt.
Yeah.
And make sure everybody can see it. Just flex that breaststroker chest for a second.
Well, worked my whole life to be able to wear a shirt.
Yeah, that's why you became a swimmer. So the shirts look good.
Right.
So it's a startup that you created called Sportidia.
Yes.
And so what was it about, or what was happening in your financial industry life that led you to start this? And while you're at it, tell us what it is.
Okay. So very quickly, the investment bank got sold to a big bank, and then the whole entrepreneurship that you normally have in a smaller investment bank went away. And I realized that's what I liked, but I was in the financial market. So I was invited to be a co-founder in a fintech. From there, I opened another fintech. So I had 3 fintechs in Brazil. The last one, I did well on the first 2, very badly on the third one, just like a normal athletic career, not all the swimming to do well. But then I decided to move back to US. That was 2017. I went to California. Both of my kids wanted to go to school there, so they attended UCSD. We moved as a family. I still worked with fintechs, and then came the pandemic. In the pandemic, what I realized was most of my friends that were in some way, shape, or form physical activity participants, people that would like from running, triathlon, or just like, going to the gym, everybody was locked out. So you're locked in, you can't do anything. Everybody was going to social media. And then it came like the idea, why don't I use my technology expertise and build an app where I get the social aspect of the sports into the app. So it's like a social media for sports. It's something that when you're there, there's nothing about war, politics, religion. It's all about, we became friends because you swim and I swim. I met you in a call, but then it just clicked because you talk about a workout. Then I went to the pool here and did the workout you told me. So, people started to get connected because of the app. So it was around 2020. I have had the idea before, but then I said maybe I should take it serious, and that's what Sportidia is all about. It's a mix of the word sports in English with social media in Portuguese, and I became Sportidia. And the idea is, what if your feed has activities that instead of just saying that you like, maybe you can just click and say, I'm going to that one. So yeah, let's go swimming on Saturday. I post on the feed and you just say, I'm going, and somebody else says, go, go, go. And somebody that's out of town is visiting and they see, oh, these guys are all crazy. They're swimming at the ocean, Saturday morning. Maybe I should join. And then what I did in Sportidia is like one of the basics idea of startups. Don't create anything, just copy what's out there. So we just picked up a bunch of features and ideas from different social medias and platforms. So once you see that I posted something about swimming in the ocean, then you go into my profile, and it's a little bit like a LinkedIn of sports. You will see that, in swimming, I'm pretty good, but, in CrossFit, I'm about average. In snowboarding, I'm still, suffering. But I make a joke like that. We're the only social platform that you can actually say in your profile that you're a beginner, because you're not afraid of saying, I'd love to learn fencing, but I'm a zero. In any other platforms, you got to create something that your profile becomes attractive. So even if it's not 100% real, you can't go to LinkedIn and say, I'm an accountant, but I know nothing. I just want to learn. So Sportidia allows you to do that. It just, other people will come. And this is the interesting part about sports is if you say you don't know and you come to a workout with me or you, and they don't know as much, or they will help. It's in most of the places I went, it's in their nature, the community aspect of it. Every time you register for any of this sports or physical activities, you will see that somebody's out there as crazy as you, trying to do the same thing, but they may be better or in a different level, and they all stop to help. It's really hard to go somewhere that nobody will even talk to you. I mean, from young to masters, there's always coming. And then most of my friends, from life, from professional life or from early ages or college, they were athletes somehow. I mean, they've done something. So that's when things clicked. And so in 21, we raised the first round, and then 22, we launched the app. And now we are kind of like on a third version. So we've learned a lot, made a few mistakes here and there. And now we're just going through a full launch of what we think is going to become the biggest hub of sports. Not really. It might. There's users that do that. They talk about sports. They're fans, but it's more about doing sweat. Yeah, and then come here. And I tell this to every time I pitch to investors or I'm telling a story. Nowadays, every time you're going to do something, like if you have a swimming workout or a bunch of buddies want to go hiking, it starts on a messaging app, iMessage or WhatsApp. then you do it and it ends in Instagram. Somebody posts pictures or videos about it. So normally it's got those connections. We just add it all up into Sportidia and trying to, make it a one-stop shop for you to find people, do it, and then create content.
I would think that a closer comparison, although not the same, but closer, would be something like Strava, maybe.
We consider Strava is a good comparison. Their DNA, or the reason they were created, was actually to help you while, performing your activity. So they do track a bunch of metrics. And now they're trying to move into become a social app where, you kind of will go for a bike ride and, it gets your distance, your altitude, and all the things that happen while you're biking. And that might become a content that somebody is interested. We come from a different angle. We bring the social aspect, and maybe we'll improve that into getting metrics. But if you look at, we have currently 110 sports that actually have some kind of poster content. So if you get like, you know, um, base jumping or beach volleyball, or uh, we have pillow fight that's in our app, and none of those have metrics that would fit an app like Strava. None of those have an app. Some of them may have an app to rent a place. So like you get tennis, paddle, those have an app for you to rent a court. Some like basketball, football, you might find an app for a pickup game that you might find people organizing it. The idea of Sportiva is kind of bringing features from all of those, and in our mind, we're like the Slack of all those other apps. So my view is that one day maybe you do something in Strava, and that creates a content in Sportidia, because they're integrated. And then you have a whole community of friends that would be interested that you biked 100 miles, although none of them are bikers or cyclists, and none of them are in Strava, but they met you because they swim with you, or they do yoga with you or something, and that's what Sportiva is trying to catch.
I'm a very narrow user of Strava, so I don't even know all the other things it can do. The only thing I care about is other people recommending a specific bike route for a workout. That's the only thing and so it seems like it's pretty limited. And I like your comparison to messaging to create an event that's social. Here's my friends, and then Instagram to sort of show the fun aspects maybe of what it was, what it was like. Because I think
recruit more friends to come next time.
I don't know if I told you this in our first discussion, but I have this foundation for kids who've become disabled, and we get them whatever equipment they need to get into a sport. So there's a sport, at the root of it is a sport that is going to help them rebuild their self-esteem. I'm thinking about trying to bring them in, and then, there would be this other category. It would be like, you know, uh, I don't know, amputee running.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love that. And this is how we differentiate from everybody else. It becomes a community. And now, let's say, we run ads for free for your foundation and Sportidia. Then other people that didn't know about this work might get interested because they know somebody that's going through the same thing, or they just want to help because they are into the sport or some sport, just as as much. So, why not provide this to kids? And yes, those are, I normally say, people say, oh, you should talk to a very famous, athlete to become your ambassador. No, the ambassador in Sportilia might be a person that's an amputee and run, or a single mom that just had a baby and now she wants to get back in shape, and she thinks she's not fit to go to a gym or a studio, so she wants to try something at home. those are the people that will say, Sportidia changed my life. I became more physically active. Some of them might go all the way in the career of sports and, turn into something. And of course, I'm not saying, the best athletes are not welcome, but normally it's when I see other more people participating, that's what kind of drives my energy to keep building Sportidia.
And we'll put it in the show notes, but just say what the where they go to find the app and to sign up.
Just if you have an Android, Google Play or App Store for the iPhones, and download Sportidia, and that's it. You register, and then you start posting. The one trait about the whole thing is that every post you have to say, the location and the sport that you're participating. You can post things that we call content posts. It's just like a tip or something that or you can actually post a workout that you did or will do. And then when you post an activity, the future is coming, and what we're going to have is like, charts, and then telling you, oh, look how good you did. Last month you did 5 activities. This month you did 6. So it's like trying to get people better. We're also launching a medals program, which is not a medal because you won or you broke a record or you're just a better. It's just medals for what you've done in the app. So maybe you created an activity and 5 people confirmed and went play with you or train with you, that gives you a medal. Or you brought 3 friends to become a Sportidia, that gives you a medal. And so the idea is, how do we motivate or use the same tools that social media has to keep you glued to the screen, but we use the tools to keep you, out of your house, go somewhere and get fit. I wouldn't say fit too much. I've seen a lot of people say, it's too much suffering. I like the social of it. I go to the gym to talk more than to lift weights. That's fine. You went, it's good for the brain. It's good for your health because you're participating in something, and you always get moving. So, even if you talk more at the gym than lift weights, you still lift something. You could have been home, just zapping the remote control, and that would.
Right. Oh, I think it's fun. So, hey, when you think back, because this, now we're just going to sort of link the Sportidia to all the other things that you've done. But to do what you did and swim the way you did had to take a lot of grit, and to do a startup after you were very successful in financial services and fintech, a lot of grit clearly exhibited. But where do you think it came from?
Oh, that's a very hard question. I have a history at home. My father was a basketball player. He was actually a world champion playing in against US in the finals in Rio in 1963.
Now, wait, he can't have been 5'9".
No, he married a very short mom that I have, and she's the one that I blame. I say, because he tried to make me a basketball player. And again, same thing about career decision, but at 12 years old, you're like, I'm not growing like this. I better do something else. So I became a swimmer. But I was a few years ago, I was talking to a friend, and he was like, I got to get my kid to do what you did. I got to get my kid to go to the Olympics, and I've got him into playing tennis and running. And what are these things? And then it got me thinking, it comes with the person. It's not really something you enforce. Most of the athletes I've seen, parents who say, I don't know why, but this kid would never let his ball go, or, it'd be 10 at night and he would be shooting hoops at the garage at that, bad basketball board that they had. And I really don't know if it's from example or genetic. What I know is most of us, we're determined, but I think resilient would be a better description. It's normally people that if they win or lose, and it's true, if they win or lose, the second after, they're thinking about the next race. So I've seen many of us, many people there's not much celebration when you win. You're like, oh shit, there's another race. When is the other race? So it's like, I've seen guys say, yeah, the next Olympics, dude, that's 4 years down the road. You're talking about this already. Yes, you're normally these people are. And I think that, if you want to make a link, I seen that a lot in founders in startup. It's like everything that you accomplish, yes, but you wanted to accomplish that. So what's the next? What's the next? And not next startup, but next goal, the next hurdle, the next benchmark, the next KPI. It's like, okay, I got to 1,000 users. How do I get to 3,000? Like, go celebrate that you got 1,000 users. No. It's the 3,000 mark.
Well, the same thing is true when a startup ends, whether it ends well or ends poorly. A lot of founders, myself included, because I'm on number 9, said, "Oh, okay, well, I want to do another one, and here's the market I want to be in, and I don't want to make these mistakes." Or, "Well, that was great. We had a good outcome, but now I want to use some of what I earned and do another one."
Do it again.
It's kind of the same as the that's meat.
And not a whole lot of people around you gets it. They're like, why? The other day I went to an event with where my kids works, and his boss's boss. It's like, I don't understand you people. Why do you keep creating startups? And it's like, I don't understand why you become an executive and you go up and up. The fun for us is, what's the next one? What's the next one? But that's why I normally compare, and it's not only an athletic or a sports career. If you're a singer or an actor or anything that you're always trying to get better at what you do, that's the same thing as a founder. There's not much difference.
I agree. Well, this was a wonderful conversation, Nico. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And I hope I see you in a pool or the ocean. So I'm not going to Alcatraz. That's too cold for me. And I know that's your preferred event, but if you ever hit South Florida or this one, a long event, let me know and I'll go swim. I'll break my sprinting habits and I will swim along this.
Swim slower. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning into this week's episode of the Designing Successful Startups podcast. Check out the show notes for resources and links. Please follow and rate us at podchaser.com/designing successful startups. And also, please share and like us on your social media channels. This is Jotham Rosenberg saying TTFN, ta-ta for now.